The text arrived at exactly 6:32 p.m. on March 15th, 2024, our 10th wedding anniversary. Running late at work. Huge deadline. I'm so sorry. Happy anniversary, babe. I'll make it up to you this weekend. Love you. 3 heart emojis. A kiss emoji. At the time, I almost smiled. Looking back, those emojis were the cruelest part. They came from a woman who had been lying to me for well over a year. I was sitting in my truck outside Bastion's restaurant, wearing the nicest suit I owned. I wasn't a wealthy man. I owned a small electrical contracting business, and every dollar mattered. Still, 10 years of marriage only happens once, and I wanted the night to mean something. On the passenger seat sat a bouquet of stargazer lilies, Paige's favorite flowers. They were the same flowers she had carried on our wedding day. Every anniversary I'd sent them to her office. This year I wanted to hand them to her myself. I read her message one more time. For a moment I thought about driving home, maybe calling my friend Knox for a beer, maybe pretending another lonely evening was just part of married life. Instead, I walked inside alone. The hostess seated me near the back of the restaurant beside a window. I ordered a glass of wine and placed the flowers on the empty chair across from me, hoping I could at least enjoy a quiet dinner. Then I looked across the dining room. At first, I noticed a black dress. Then my stomach dropped. It wasn't just any dress. It was the dress I'd bought Paige for Christmas. She'd smiled, twirled in front of the bedroom mirror, and said she was saving it for a special occasion. Apparently this was that occasion. She wasn't at work. She was sitting across from another man. He looked to be in his early 50s, silver-haired, sharply dressed, and completely at ease. His hand rested on hers while a bottle of champagne sat between them. A second later, Paige laughed. Not the polite laugh she gave strangers. The real one. The laugh I hadn't heard at home in months. Then she leaned across the table and kissed him. A real kiss. The kind shared by 2 people who already belonged to each other. Everything around me disappeared. The music, the conversations, even the sound of dishes faded into silence. I couldn't breathe. My hands gripped the table so tightly my knuckles turned white. I stood up. I was ready to walk over there, flip their table, and ask my wife how her big deadline at work was going. I took only 2 steps before someone grabbed my arm. "Sit down." The voice was calm, controlled, the kind of voice that belonged to someone who never panicked. I turned and saw a woman I had never met before. She looked to be in her late 40s, wearing a navy blazer with almost no jewelry except a simple watch. "Let go of me. Sit down first. My wife is over there kissing another man." "I know." Those 2 words stopped me cold. "I know who he is," she continued quietly. "I know who your wife is, and if you confront them now, you'll ruin everything." There was something about her confidence that made me hesitate. She wasn't guessing. She knew exactly what was happening. Against every instinct in my body, I sat back down. She introduced herself as Vivian Hale, a licensed private investigator. She slid a business card across the table. "I wasn't hired by you," she said. "I was hired by another woman." She asked whether the name Margaret Ryland meant anything to me. I shook my head. "It will soon." She glanced toward the corner where Paige and the man were enjoying another glass of champagne. "The man your wife is with is Sterling Mercer, the CEO of Mercer Gaines Capital, the company where Paige works." I stared at her. Vivian continued. "Margaret Ryland is Sterling Mercer's second ex-wife. When they divorced, their settlement included a clause that would cost Sterling $5 million if he had another affair with an employee within 5 years. I looked back across the restaurant. Paige was smiling at him like I no longer existed. Vivian lowered her voice. "My investigation shows their affair began about 14 months ago. 14 months. Every late meeting. Every canceled dinner. Every excuse. Every cold night between us suddenly made perfect sense. Then Vivian placed a bank statement in front of me. There's something else you need to see." The deposits were impossible to ignore. $15,000. every single month, for 14 months. More than $200,000 had been transferred into a private account under Paige's name through a shell company secretly controlled by Sterling Mercer. My hands started shaking. She hadn't only betrayed our marriage. She had hidden over $200,000 while letting me believe we were simply trying to save money. Vivian watched me carefully before speaking again. If you confront them tonight, you'll get an argument. She paused. If you wait, you'll get something much more valuable. What? The truth, and enough evidence to destroy every lie they've built. I looked one last time at the woman I had loved for 10 years. She laughed as Sterling refilled her champagne. Meanwhile, my anniversary flowers sat untouched on the chair beside me. That was the moment I realized I hadn't just lost my marriage. I'd been living inside a carefully constructed lie. And tonight, it had finally collapsed. I stared at the bank statement until the numbers stopped feeling real. More than $200,000, hidden from me, paid by the man my wife was kissing just a few tables away. Vivian folded the papers and looked me straight in the eye. Go home tonight. Don't confront them. Kiss your children goodnight. Act normal. And tomorrow hire a divorce attorney. I'll send your lawyer everything we've collected. I wanted to fight. I wanted answers. Instead, I listened. That night, I drove home with the lilies still sitting on the passenger seat. They were meant for my wife, but by the time I reached the house, they felt like flowers for a marriage that had already died. The babysitter let me in quietly. Ryland and my little daughter, Odette, were asleep upstairs. I stood beside their beds for a long time, watching them breathe. At that moment, I made myself one promise. Whatever happened next, I wouldn't let my anger destroy their future. The following morning, I met with Boone Taggart, a respected divorce attorney and former military lawyer. I told him everything. The anniversary dinner, the affair, Vivian Hale, Sterling Mercer, the secret account, the hidden payments. When I finished, Boone didn't speak for several seconds. Finally, he leaned forward. You've got something most people never have, he said, evidence. He explained that adultery could seriously affect a fault-based divorce, and hiding marital assets would make Paige's position even worse. The money secretly deposited into her account wasn't just another lie. It was financial deception. Then Boone said something that changed everything. I'm also going after primary custody. The thought hadn't even crossed my mind. But he explained that 14 months of calculated lies, hidden money, and an affair with her employer painted a picture the court wouldn't ignore. Within days, Vivian delivered her complete investigation. Photographs, hotel records, financial documents, bank transfers, messages, everything connected perfectly. The affair wasn't based on suspicion anymore. It was documented. Boone filed for divorce. A few days later, Paige was served with the papers at her office. That evening, she rushed home in tears. She found me sitting quietly at our kitchen table. "What is this?" she asked. "Why are you doing this?" I looked at her calmly. "You already know why." She immediately started talking about work stress and misunderstandings. I raised my hand. "Stop." She fell silent. I was at Bastion's on our anniversary. Every bit of color disappeared from her face. She realized I had seen everything. "I watched you kiss Sterling." She tried to speak. "It's not what you think." "It is exactly what I think." Then I listed everything. 14 months, more than $200,000, the hidden account, the shell company, the hotel visits, the photographs, the text messages, every excuse she'd ever given me. She slowly collapsed onto the kitchen floor. Not because I yelled, because she knew there was nowhere left to hide. She cried harder than I'd ever seen. "I'll end it with him," she begged. "We can fix this. We can go to counseling." I shook my head. "You wore the dress I bought you, to celebrate our anniversary with another man. You texted me heart emojis while sitting across from him. You lied to me every single day for over a year. I stood up. Some things don't break. They end. That was the final conversation we ever had as husband and wife. The divorce lasted several months. Boone built the case piece by piece. Paige's attorney argued that the hidden account was simply her personal savings. Boone proved every payment came from Sterling's shell company. They argued the affair shouldn't affect custody. Boone showed the court a pattern of deliberate deception that lasted 14 months. The judge wasn't impressed with Paige's explanations. The hidden account was frozen. Its contents became part of the marital assets. More importantly, the court concluded that Paige's repeated dishonesty reflected directly on her judgment as a parent. When the ruling finally came, I was awarded primary custody of Ryland and Odette. Paige received visitation on alternating weekends. The family home stayed with me so the children wouldn't lose the only place they had ever known. But the consequences didn't stop there. Vivian's evidence also destroyed Sterling Mercer. His former wife enforced the morality clause in their divorce agreement. After months of legal battles, a judge ruled against him. Sterling was ordered to pay his ex-wife $5 million. News of the affair spread through Richmond's business community. Major investors pulled their money. His company's reputation suffered, and the powerful executive who believed he could control everything discovered that some mistakes carry a price far greater than money. As for Paige, she soon lost her position at Mercer Gaines. Officially, it was called restructuring. Everyone knew the real reason. The life she had risked our family for disappeared almost as quickly as our marriage had. By then, I had stopped looking backward. For the first time in a long time, I was focused on only one thing: building a future for my children and myself. A year has passed since the night my marriage ended inside that restaurant. The anniversary came around again, but this time I didn't buy lilies. I didn't make a reservation. Instead, I took Ryland and Odette to a small pizza place after school. We laughed over pepperoni slices, played the claw machine, and after 5 tries, Odette finally won a little stuffed penguin. She hugged it like she'd won the lottery, and proudly named it Sparky. That simple evening meant more to me than the expensive anniversary dinner I'd planned the year before. Life slowly found its rhythm again. Sable Electric kept growing. We picked up new contracts, hired another apprentice, and stayed busy enough that every morning reminded me why I'd worked so hard to build the business in the first place. My mother retired and started helping with the kids several days each week. Somehow she could cook dinner, help with homework, settle arguments, and still remind me that no matter how old I got, I was still her son. One evening we sat on the porch after the kids had gone to bed. She looked at me and smiled. "You handled it the right way." "I almost didn't," I admitted. "I wanted to walk across that restaurant." "I know," she said, "but you didn't." She took another sip of tea before adding quietly, "Anger gives people a moment. Patience changes their future." Those words stayed with me. Ryland was 8 by then, old enough to notice that life had changed. One afternoon, he rode with me to a job site. As we drove, he stared at the wiring diagrams on the dashboard. "Dad," he asked, "how do you know where every wire belongs?" I smiled. "You follow the blueprint. If something doesn't work, you don't panic. You trace the problem, fix it the right way, and make sure it never happens again." He thought about that for a minute. Then he asked the question I'd been expecting for months. "Is that what happened with you and Mom?" I looked at my son. He was too young for the full truth. But he deserved honesty. "Something like that," I said. "Sometimes people make choices that break things. When that happens, you don't keep pretending everything is fine. You repair what you can, and you build something stronger." He nodded, satisfied with the answer, and went back to practicing with his baseball glove. As I drove, sunlight poured through the windshield. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't scare me. It felt open. Sometimes people ask whether I regret not confronting Paige and Sterling that night. The answer is no. If I had exploded in that restaurant, I would have given away every advantage. Instead, I stayed calm. I listened. I let the truth reveal itself. That single decision protected my children, strengthened my case, and allowed justice to do what anger never could. People often think revenge is loud. It isn't. Real justice is quiet. It's patient. It's built carefully, one fact at a time, until the truth can no longer be ignored. Paige lost the marriage she threw away. Sterling lost millions, his reputation, and the respect he'd spent decades building. Neither of them expected consequences. They expected secrecy. What they forgot is that every lie leaves a trail. Sooner or later, someone follows it. As for me, I didn't win because they lost. I won because I refused to become the worst version of myself. I chose my children over my pride. I chose patience over rage. I chose dignity over revenge. Looking back now, I realize the flowers I carried into that restaurant were never meant to save my marriage. They were there to remind me of the man I wanted to remain, even after my heart was broken. Some people betray your trust. Some people destroy the future you imagined. But they never get to decide who you become afterward. That choice is always yours. And if there's one lesson my story taught me, it's this. When life places you face to face with betrayal, don't let anger write the ending. Stay steady. Stay patient. Because sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is nothing at all until the truth has finished speaking. That night I thought my life was over. In reality, it was the night a better one quietly began.